So on verse 18.
We are on verse 18. All right.
Yep. Verse 18, chapter 4, Hatha Yoga Pradipika. There are 72,000 nadis throughout the cage of this body. Sushumna is the Shambhavi. The remaining nadis are unimportant. There is not one nadi in this body which is insignificant, just as every speck of life in this world is significant. A beggar is no less important than a king in terms of human life. However, in terms of important duties and obligations to society, a king is more important. Similarly, Sushumna's role is greater than any of the other nadis because it is the royal road for the highest force, Kundalini. It is the main freeway from the depths of the earth to the heights of heaven. According to the sloka, it is the path of Shambhavi, i.e., the Shakti pertaining to Shambhu. Shambhu is the name of Shiva, meaning one born of peace. Shambhavi is also the name of Durga, an aspect of the great cosmic Shakti. Shambhavi means the power which grants peace, or existing for the peace of welfare and welfare of all. The Shat Chakra, Nirupana, describes, in the space inside the Meru, placed on the left and right are the two Siras, Shashi, Ida, and Mirara, Pingala. The Nadi Sushumna, whose substance is the threefold gunas, is in the middle. She is the form of the sun, moon, and fire. Ida, Pingala, Sushumna. Her body, a string of blooming datura flowers, the chakras, extends from the middle of the khanda, Muladhara, to the head, and the Vajra inside her extends, shining from the Medra, male sex organ, to the head. Inside her is Chitrini, who is lustrous with the lust of prana and attainable in yoga by the yogis. She, Chitrini, is as subtle as a spider's thread and pierces all the lotuses, chakras, which are placed within the backbone and is pure intelligence. She, Chitrini, is beautiful by reason of these lotuses, which are strung on her. Inside her is the Brahma Nadi, which exists from the orifice of the mouth of Hara, Muladhara, to the place beyond, where Adideva is, Sahasrara. Sahasrara, the crown, that's the crown chakra. My mouth is butchering it.
Okay.
She is beautiful like a chain of lightning and fire, like a lotus fiber, and shines in the minds of the sages. She is extremely subtle, the awakening of pure knowledge, the embodiment of all bliss, whose true nature is pure consciousness. The Brahma Dwara shines in her mouth. This is the place of entrance to the region sprinkled by ambrosia, and is called the knot, as also the mouth of Sushumna. After Sushumna, the next two major nadis are Ida and Pingala. Thereafter, Gandhari, Hasjiva, Pusha, Yashawini, Alambusha, Kuha, and Shankini. The location and purpose of other major nadis are briefly mentioned in the Upanishads and various yogic texts, but are not as clearly defined. Gandhari, from the navel wheel, collection of nadis behind the navel to the left eye. Behind Ida, this nadi is associated with sight, joins Ham, petal of Ajna chakra. Hashdeva, from the navel wheel to the right eye, in front of Ida, associated with sight, joins Kasham, petal of Ajna. Pusha, from the navel wheel to the right ear, behind Pingala, associated with audition. Yashawini, behind Pusha, and Saraswati, running from the left big toe to the left ear, associated with audition. Alambusha runs from the Khandasthana to the mouth. Kuha in front of Sushumna flows down to the reproductive organs. Shakim between Gandhari and Saraswati, below Sahasrara, and connects to Swadhisthana. Kurma, in the region of the sternum bone, stabilizes the mind. Payaswini, behind Pusha and Saraswati, runs from the edge of the right ear to the right big toe. Shura, from the navel wheel to the eyebrow center. Varuni, between Yashwashwini and Kuha, flows downward from the navel to Muladhara, aids defecation. Vishwadhari, between Hasta Jiva and Kuha, runs from the navel to Kandasthana, said to carry 4 kinds of nourishment. Sumya runs to the tips of the toes. Kashiki terminates at the toes. Jiva courses upwards. Raka absorbs water, collects mucus in the throat and sinuses, and creates hunger and thirst. Chitra flows down from the navel, associated with ejaculation. Lamba around the navel wheel. Vijnana nadis, channels of consciousness. Itala extends from Muladhara off the pedal Sam. Kaladamini extends from Muladhara off the pedal. Oh wait, did I just read that? Oh no. Extends from Muladhara off the pedal Sham. It's very similar to the one I just read. That's why I was like,
Yeah.
Sutra extends from Swadhisthana off the pedal of Ram. Vishwa and even Tika extends from Manipura off the pedal Bam. Ika, Yuka, and Shukra extend from Manipura off the pedal Nam. Kali, Vijolika, and Itala extend from Manipura off the pedal Tam. Taraka extends from Manipura between the pedals Ranam and Tam. Madhavi extends from Manipura between the pedals Ranam and Radam. Tara extends from Anahata between the pedals Dam and Fam. Atiya extends from Anahata between the pedals Fam and Pam. I'm probably not pronouncing it right.
There you go. Congratulations.
Naga extends from Anahata between the pedals Pam and Nam. The following nadis all extend off Vishuddhi chakra. Vishuddhi is the throat chakra. Shikhati between the pedals Aim and M. Amrita between the pedals M and Larim. Saraswati between the pedals Reem and Rim. Bala between the pedals Rim and Om. Tikta between the pedals Om and M. Matrika between the pedals M and Im. Eshamarika between the pedals Im and M. Kumarika between the pedals A and M. Sita between the pedals Am and Shiva between the pedals Om and Om. That would have been an interesting diagram to see all the lines going everywhere.
What? Say that again, what you just said about a diagram?
I said it would have been an interesting diagram to see all the lines going everywhere. I mean,
yeah, but I was spacing out and thinking exactly the same thing. I would love to have seen a diagram.
Yeah, but it would have been too confusing, everything at once. They would have had to broken it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting them to go through so many of the nadis, but it was interesting. Wait, I'm not up. So verse 19 and 20. When the vayu is increased, then the gastric fire, samana, should be taken along with kundalini in the aroused sushumna and blocked. When the prana flows in the sushumna, this state of manomani, consciousness devoid of mind, is established. Therefore, other forced practices are just laborious to get to the yogi. No matter what you practice and how much you practice, until Kundalini Shakti has been aroused and moves up through Sushumna, whatever you practice will be a conscious effort, it is not spontaneous. When you perform breath retention, it is done by conscious effort, but when Kavala Kumbhaka occurs, it is a spontaneous happening. Awakening of the Shakti means spontaneity. The pranas can only merge when the time is ripe, and a yogi can only wait for that moment. Just as day and night meet at a designated moment, and not just when you think it would be a suitable time. Similarly, Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna will only merge at an appropriate time. Therefore, a yogi has to adapt a peculiar and expectant attitude, like a servant awaiting his master. It is a state of relaxed preparedness. He remains poised and ever ready for an event which will occur inevitably in its own time. He accepts that to precipitate that event is not within his control or power. Yet it is in his destiny that it will occur, and he must be ever vigilant in sadhana. It should not be interpreted as fatalism or laziness, but as a state of surrender and readiness, which is to be sustained by constant awareness. That is why relaxation in yoga is a sattvic experience and not a tamasic one. Relaxation for a yogi is not inertia, indolence, lazy, or turning off. Rather, it is a state of equipoise, balance, and receptivity. The merging of the pranas results in a state called manomani, which literally means mind without mind. Or rather, to be more explicit, it is consciousness or awareness devoid of the individual functioning of the mind. Manomani means to experience that at a certain instant, the barrier or fence which delineates or encircles the individual mind and its functions have been vaulted or dissolved, and a greater mind beyond that fence has been revealed and has assumed control. Oh.
Huh.
I used to think when I would take like a restorative yoga. So I used to, before Rev, I used to do day passes. I was never an unlimited yoga member until I joined Rev. And I used to get like 20 class package, and you'd have like 3 or 6 months to use it. And I was only taking one teacher. And the thought of wasting one of my passes on like a restorative class would be like ludicrous to me. Like, if I'm gonna sleep, why not just do it at home? But then I started really learning the power of restorative more when I would take like all the Rev restorative classes, but I never let myself take it. So I'm not saying that the studio I was at wasn't doing a good job. I just would never want to like waste it. I tried it a few times, but I'm like, if I'm going to go use one of my passes, I want to like work. But this is where you can get hurt. You have to have the balance. And so I love this. And I know she's not talking about restorative yoga right here, but it's an important reminder that we have to have those moments. And I find restorative yoga to be one of the hardest yogas because you do have to learn how to relax and rest. And it's basically a 75-minute meditation class for me because you're with your own thoughts.
Yeah, the first restorative class I ever took was at Blue Firmament, which closed a long time ago, with Eva. And Eva, at that point, had been teaching really powerful flow classes. But I think what happened was she discovered restorative yoga. She had a couple of students in with her, and there were about 10 of us in the room. And a part of me kept on thinking, this is like being pampered at a spa, which I had never done. So this was my imagination,
Yeah.
And and I really loved the first time, and it was a 2-hour restorative class. It felt like it was about a half hour long. I mean, it was quite something. But it wasn't until later, and I took more restorative classes with Eva, that I got into the kind of work part of it. It
Yeah.
wasn't fun. You're not going for a massage and aromatherapy. It's a different kind of focusing and a different kind of breathing, and I'm still not really good at it. And Eva's long gone to the southern realm, and
Yeah.
I haven't taken a restorative class in a long time.
I bought a bolster so I could do it for COVID.
Yeah.
So I could do restorative at home, but honestly, it's super challenging for me to do restorative at home because it's hard to relax in home. Like I like restorative in the studio where Raf can wrap my legs in a blanket and like you said, get that pampered experience where you could really relax. Here you're like, why is the floor so dirty? Why are the moldings so dirty? Like
Mhm.
in your own house. I did it once or twice with Raf just because I'm like I really owe it to myself to do it, so I did it. But I do miss it in the studio. And I love taking restorative after I love taking a class, flow class, and then restoring after if I have the time to really just dedicate like 3 hours to yoga. It's so nice for me.
Yeah, yeah, I I agree with you. I think it's much easier to do in the studio. For one thing, the person who's facilitating or teaching the restorative class sets up the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So when you walk in, you are walking into someplace different. You're leaving your baggage outside the doors. Just by walking through the door, you drop off some baggage. It just like drops
Yeah.
off. Then you walk in and you set up your mat. There's a gazillion blankets and props and bolsters, and um, there's soft light, and sometimes there's soft music, sometimes not. And it's true. There's nothing like wrapping your legs, with your feet up.
Yeah, and I have a Rev blanket and I have the bolster and I have the block. So like I can get a pretty decent experience at home. And the one class I took recently, I took his 4:30 and then I stayed for the restorative. And it was great. Like once I got myself to actually do it. But I try to create that spa experience at home. Like I'll light a candle with a nice smell to it so I can get myself to calm down and relax.
Yeah.
Almost like, and I do love going to the spa. Like there's a spa in Vegas that me and my girlfriends all went to, and it was like one of my fun girl trip experiences where we all were in our bathrobes just hanging out, and everything smelled like eucalyptus, and it was just
It
and
sounds wonderful.
yeah, it was. I was actually just thinking I one time had a guest pass to that Lifetime gym by Garden City,
Yeah.
which is a ginormous, insane, crazy place. But they have in the women's room, they have one of those steam rooms. And I love, when I was in the city, I used to go to Equinox gym.
Yeah.
Um, I would go there because when I was living with my grandmother in Queens. She had an apartment above her house. And so after I moved down to Manhattan, I lived with her for a few years. My grandfather had just passed away, and it just made sense for both of us where we were transitioning in life. And so
Yeah.
I would leave work every day at 5 o'clock. And I was also very new at JP Morgan. It was around that time period. So I would leave my desk at 5 o'clock every day and I would walk to the bus and I would go home. But getting on a bus down Queens Boulevard at 5 o'clock would take me like 2 hours, 2.5 hours to get home. So instead, I decided I'm going to join Equinox. It was very expensive. It was like $100 a month or something, but I would go there first. I would exercise. I'd go in the steam room. They had a full shower with a whole line of Kiehl's products. They had everything there. I would take my full shower. So now I'm ready for bed and work the next day. And it would delay my rush hour. So then I would go to the bus and it would take me a little bit less time to get home. So I was like thinking about those steam rooms. Like, with COVID, there's not much I miss, and I didn't take advantage of the steam rooms very often, but I'm like, oh, I could go for a steam room experience. But honestly, I'm just gonna buy a bottle of eucalyptus oil. I had one here, but it's empty. And I just dump it in the shower and I take my own steam in the shower.
Yeah, exactly. But the first time I experienced a steam room was I used to go to the gym at Columbia when I was a grad student, and that they had just renovated the gym. Now this is a long time ago, so since then they've built a whole brand new gym. I can only imagine what this was like. And so I would work out and I would run on the track, and then it would, on a Friday night, I would go into the I'd take a shower. There were no Kiehl's products, but there was a steam, and I would go into the steam room and I just loved it.
Oh,
But unfortunately, I would have to leave the steam room and get dressed. And like you, I lived in Chelsea then, so this is before Chelsea got expensive. In fact, across the street from us was a SRO building, which was always interesting. But I'd hop on the number one. Hop was not exactly the right word, because you come out of a steam room and you feel like you're kind of melting.
yeah. Yeah.
And I would walk to the subway, get on the number one and take it downtown, bypass all the drunk guys by the Irish bar, which was next to my exit, my subway exit. Walk to my apartment, barely make it up the 5 flights.
Oh, God.
But that was my Friday night treat.
Yeah.
Because I was a grad student, so I had to go back into the lab on Saturday and Sunday, but Friday night I got to do that.
Yeah.
And since then, I just love steam rooms. And in fact, our next house upgrade, I haven't talked to my husband about this yet, and I don't want to do it for a while because it's a lot of work to do this, will be to take the back room of the basement. About 2/3 of the room is finished, and a basement is finished, and it's kind of my husband's man cave, and it's terrific,
Yeah.
The back room where the washer and dryer is, not finished. I want to finish it, and I want to put in a bathroom with a shower and a steam room.
Yeah. Do it.
Little, it doesn't have to be big.
No.
2 person would be great,
Yeah, there's just something about it, and yeah, I do love it. And
Yeah.
so I used to run track. I ran track in high school, and we always ran at Columbia. It was part of like where our meets were.
Yeah.
And they had it's called the Armory, right? At Columbia. It was called the Armory. We ran at the Armory. And
Where I was on the 116th Street campus.
oh, I think we were further, like
You were in Inwood, I'll bet. Were you up?
164.
You were what?
What is 164th Street where Columbia track was?
No, I don't know where the track was. There was an inside. There was an inside track, which was relatively small, but it was still bigger than the track at Teachers College. So I used to go to and do that track. So you and I were on different, in different locations.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but it was a very famous track. It was raised, and it was like a place where they held like famous meets. But my very last it was indoor track. It wasn't an outdoor track. It was winter track. My very last race, I ran my race. It was the 300. And I was going for the school record, and I missed it by like point something. But I got pulled into the finals, so I had to run the race again. And that time I broke the school record. And so I always have that memory of Columbia track. But then next year, some other person broke my record. So, but records are meant to be broken. But it was still a fun experience.
That's a good story. It's a very,
Um,
Pam, I have to step out for a minute, but I'll be right back.
okay, take your time. Okay, so just taking a few breaths in and out through the nose. Bringing your right hand over to your face, closing right nostril with your right thumb. Inhale through left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. Moving like that on your own breath, adding locks and retention if it's in your practice. Set the timer when you're done with your breathing, exhaling out through the left side. Bringing hands to clasp. Namaste.
Have a good day.